Car con carne, it is quarantine con carne. We're all in lockdown right now. Quarantine con carne, sponsored tonight by Siren Records McHenry, now offering curbside pickup and online ordering. Check out their new website at sirenrecordsmchenry.com. If you're in a band, if you own a label, if you want to get your product in a store, message them on social media or just call the store. Siren Records McHenry, always looking to support local music. Car con carne also sponsored tonight by C&H Financial Services. Across the country, we find Jamal Igle, comic book creator, star. Thank you for doing this. Nice to meet you virtually.
Thanks, James.
Before we start talking about all your stuff, before we talk about Molly Danger and everything you've done, Firestorm, New Warriors, Supergirl, this is an interesting time for creatives. I mean, you're probably more used to working out of your house than most, but the hustle, I think, is more critical to a creative's survival than ever before. I mean, you working at finding innovative ways around all this, as someone with marketing stripes, as someone with a background of hustling to make things happen, how have you been navigating through the pandemic?
It's been interesting. Well, mostly because I had been used to having the house to myself for the most part during the day. And my wife is working from home. My daughter is doing home as well, because, you know, as with you guys in Chicago, you know, they sent all the kids home, gave them computers, and, you know, and now she's doing everything on Zoom. So it's been sort of interesting trying to find a rhythm for the three of us in terms of, like, you know, meals and scheduling and, you know, who's got to do what when. And, you know, we have a dog, so the dog's got to be walked, and I got to, like, fit my workout in and all this other stuff. Work-wise, it's pretty much the same. But because everything is pretty much relegated to communicating via Zoom or Facebook or whatever now, I find myself trying to catch up with people more than I probably would have under normal circumstances. So that's been interesting. Work-wise, it's been pretty much the same. I've had a pretty steady stream the entire time.
And I guess that dovetails into the next question. What is the state of the industry through all this? Seems like it could be a potentially dark period for the comics business.
Well, yes and no. If you look at it from a historical standpoint, media and the arts have always thrived through economic adversity. So I think one of the big questions that is happening with the industry right now on multiple fronts is, will digital make a bigger footprint than it already has? Because the footprint so far has been kind of minimal, at least with, like, superhero comics and the American industry, as opposed to, say, like Japanese and Korean comics, which are, most of them are online now. You got, like, companies like Line Webtoon that are doing huge numbers overseas, but don't have the same penetration here. So that's a lot of it. The other part of it is, again, you know, it's kind of, most of us are used to working at home. A lot of the creators involved in comics are working digitally anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. You know, my inker, Juan Castro, who I've been working with for about 8 years, lives in Tijuana. So I send him everything, and he just, once he's done inking things on his end, he uploads everything on Dropbox, and whatever I don't send him, and I'm generating myself, other than the actual line art, because I like to draw on paper as opposed to on my tablet, but I color and I do production and I do all that on the computer as well. So, you know, workflow hasn't really changed. When distribution channels stopped, that had a lot of people worried. Now we're in a situation where we have multiple distributors again.
Yeah.
And people are trying to figure out how that's going to work. DC Comics in particular seems to be of the mindset that, and rightfully so, and I actually agree with their line of thinking, is that we need as many venues to get product out there as possible. We can't be in a situation where the one distributor in the industry shuts down and puts everything to a stop.
Right. So here we are.
And here we are.
You mentioned digital. For my entertainment as a consumer, I love reading books, actual prose books on a tablet. I prefer that. When it comes to comics, I have a bunch of digital comics. My comicsology library is huge, but at the end of the day, I still like holding a comic or a trade. It's no comparison for me. How about you?
I'm a print guy. You know, I got I got my books. You know, I like having things in print, but I am getting more used to reading comics digitally as well. I was trying to get into web comics for a while, and there's so many really well done web strips, but there's also so much content. And I think that's part of the problem is there's so much out there that you don't unless you really know a particular platform and what's on it, you know, it can be overwhelming. I like print books. I like seeing my work in print. I get a jazz of seeing my work in print. So that's never going to go away. But I also have to recognize realities of how, you know, the world is moving forward in terms of, you know, what younger readers are interested in. Younger kids younger than us, you know, I'm going to be 50. You know, kids, you know, my daughter is 12. You know, she does everything. She reads books because we're a house of readers. But she's drawing on a tablet, you know, which is not, you know, something that I grew up. That's something I had to learn. It's second nature to her. You know,
talking about the differences between, say, your kids' age, and I have kids around the same age as well. When we grew up, we were starved for live action superheroes. We saw Superman the movie in theaters. We got excited when Lou Ferrigno turned into the Hulk, and when Thor and Daredevil guest starred on that show. It was whatever scraps you could get.
I keep telling people it's all we had. I suffered through the Red Brown Captain America movie.
Yes.
I saw The Punisher with Dolph Lundgren in the theater.
How about Doctor Strange?
Oh man,
there was a horrible pilot. Yes,
there was a Peter Houghton, I think. The Red Brown Captain America movies. That was like the first Marvel thing that I remember seeing. That and the Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man that came on. They would, because there was nothing else, they would show it like Channel 5 here, which is like the local New York station. Like they would show that on like a Sunday afternoon when there was nothing else to play. They ran out of karate movies, so they re-showed a pilot for that awful Spider-Man TV show.
These kids today, they don't realize. I was watching Stargirl with my son a couple nights ago. I'm like, our man Solomon Grundy, like they don't know how good they have it now.
I know. But again, you know, our kids are about the same age. They've grown up in a world where Marvel has consistently put out good movies for over a decade. You know, they don't know anything else. They don't know the suffering of sitting through. Did you ever see the Generation X pilot?
Never did. Never did.
Oh, it's bad. It's so bad.
Wait, was that with the guy who played Lex Luthor on the Lois and Clark show?
No, you're thinking of Mutant X, which was the syndicated show.
That's it.
Generation X, it had Bumper Robinson and Fiona Hughes was playing Emma Frost. And then I forget the name of the guy who played Banshee, but it was bad. It had Matt Frewer. He was the bad guy, and he was doing his best Riddler impression.
Brutal. And the reason why I bring all this up, yes, we are in the salad days of live action television.
Right.
Supergirl is a flagship show on the CW. You worked on the character. Things you did, your name have found their way into the TV show. It's not even a question, Jamal, but really, how cool is that?
It's pretty damn cool. I remember a friend of mine had leaked the pilot to me before the show aired, and I'm watching it, and there's that scene where she's like trying on, you know, the different costumes, and they go, you know, fire reported on the corner of Gates and Igle, and I'm just like, what? What? Wait, go back. Yeah, they did name check us. So I immediately emailed Sterling Gates. It's like, dude, I can't tell you how I saw this, but you know,
get your DVR ready.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty cool, you know, between that and then like them kind of using my Firestorm design on Legends of Tomorrow, and you know, little things that pop up every once in a while on some of the CW shows where you're just like, oh yeah, I remember drawing that. I remember talking about that stuff.
Now, I was late to the Firestorm revival. I mean, full disclosure, what hooked me in was number 10. What had me to what just pulled my attention off the rack. That cover, the original Firestorm,
Yeah,
the new Firestorm. Like, how could you pass that one up?
yeah,
And then
absolutely.
I went back and got caught up. What a fun run that was.
It was. It came at a time where I was working on a French graphic album series. I'd been working on that for a couple of years at that point, and it wasn't something that was even on my radar when they offered it to me. And it actually was really funny because I turned down the job originally. Pete Tomasi, who's the writer on Detective Comics now, but was an editor at DC, and I'd known him and I'd done some work for him before. He calls me up and he asked me if I wanted to do a fill-in issue, which would have been Firestorm number 6, but I couldn't do it. And because I was finishing up the second album for Humanoids. And I hung up the phone, thought that was going to be the end of it. And then he called me back the next day and he's offered me the series. And I said, you know what? I really can't do this. I would love to, but I can't. I'm busy. I hung up the phone. I took 2 steps away. I'm like, what are you doing? So I called him back and I took the job. So, and that, you know, I thought it was going to be, you know, 6 months and out. 7 years later, I was still working at DC, you know, doing monthlies. So,
do you remember what your first comic book was that you ever bought as a young boy?
Ooh, I don't remember with my own money. I would. The first comic book that I remember my mother buying for me was Alpha Flight number 12.
So you started late, relatively speaking.
I started. I mean, I'd known about superhero stuff. Like I'd been reading superhero stuff. It was kind of this thing where my life always seemed to revolve around superheroes. So, you know, it's like you're watching The Adventures of Superman and Batman and, you know, The Greatest American Hero and The Incredible Hulk and, you know, all this stuff. And then, you know, my mom, when I was a kid, she took the Spider-Man newspaper strip, the header, the John Romita header, and she did a mural of it on my bedroom wall.
That's a cool mom.
Yeah, she did Little Orphan Annie for my sister on the other wall. So it was just like, yeah, my mom's pretty cool.
It's a great story.
You know, and it's, you know, again, it's the same thing. Like you know, I got into superheroes because of Superman the movie. I got into comics later because I had a mom who was willing to buy comic books for me and saw that I had this love and this passion and always encouraged me and never said, oh, this is stupid, why are you reading this? You know, she was encouraging me to read. She saw that I liked superheroes. She saw that I liked, you know, Superman in particular, and she indulged that passion in me. So, and
that's the secret as a parent. I mean, you're a parent.
Yeah.
You have to, if a kid shows an inclination towards something, you have to keep fanning those flames. You have
absolutely. The thing that I found especially is that you can't push a kid. Mm-hmm. Like you can want them to do something, but if they don't show any interest, like there's no point, because they're going to be miserable and you're going to be miserable, especially if you're the one who has to take them places.
Exactly. So, right.
There's certain times when you have to force a kid to do something that, you know, that's for their own good. But, you know, like with my daughter, she's starting to draw and she's starting to write her own stories. And that's something that we encouraged, but that wasn't something that we pushed on her. You know, that's something that she wanted to do and that she's choosing to do. So I'm trying to encourage that in her. But you know,
that's it.
Yeah, you know, but you know, I don't know how much of it is nature versus nurture. I mean, she's raised by a couple of nerds. So
were you one of those kids who was always scribbling on his school notebooks and folders?
School notebooks, folders. Me and my friends would take like styrofoam from like refrigerator boxes. We'd patch them into ships for our G.I. Joe figures. That's like we'd like repaint. I once made like a castle out of like a bunch of Tender Vittles boxes.
That's amazing.
There's a very famous story in my family where we were at my great aunt Lillian's house, and apparently I decided that I was going to take a roll of aluminum foil while I was watching Buck Rogers and start making a starfighter out of aluminum foil.
Again, kids today, they don't realize we had Buck Rogers in the 25th century
exactly.
with the robot there, TWiki. They don't know how good they have it right now.
No, they do not. They do not.
With all their Netflix choices and Disney Plus and whatever, they have no idea.
Every so often, I will go on YouTube and I will show my daughter like old Saturday morning cartoons from like the 70s and 80s, and just like, this is what we had. You have like manga and anime and Netflix and Hulu and all of these shows. I had the Pac-Man Adventure Hour,
or Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Okay, no, I'm not going to disparage Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That was cool. I was all over that.
So, as an independent creator, people are familiar with a lot of the characters you touch. We mentioned Supergirl and Firestorm. There's New Warriors. For people who may not know all there is to know about you, Jamal, tell us, who's Molly Danger?
Molly Danger is a 10-year-old superhero who's been 10 years old for 2 decades. So she's the world's most popular hero, but she's also the loneliest little girl in the world. She doesn't have any friends. Well, she has one friend that she's not supposed to have, and she doesn't have a secret identity. And it's she is my love letter to my daughter, basically.
That's amazing. And going independent, I think we see so many creators do it. Cut your teeth at the big guys, and then being able to strike out on your own. It's scary, I'm sure, but there's definitely a liberating feeling to doing that, isn't there?
No, absolutely. And it's something that I think about all the time, especially, now at this point, 8 years later, with multiple creator-owned or creator participation projects that I've been working on. I don't mind dipping my toe back into the waters with the bigger companies, but at the same time, there's a certain amount of autonomy that I have doing my own thing, not just creatively, because that's the one benefit, but at the same time, I have my own voice when I speak to people online. I'm not, toting a certain corporate line or having to behave a certain way because I'm afraid that somebody from upstairs is going to complain about my social media presence. If I'm
who let Jamal talk to the press?
Yeah, exactly. Oh God, Jamal's talking about politics again. So luckily, with the people that I work with now, they're all as equally as politically twisted as I am. So, and in some cases even more so. So I feel like one of the things that happened as an independent creator for me is that I became a more authentic voice, if that makes any sense at all.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
I think I talk to a lot of musicians, and I have for years. Same thing. Musicians put out stuff on a major label. Then the second they strike out on their own, yeah, it's a little harder. You're back in the van. You have to sell your own merch. Right. But you kind of refined your center. You remember why you started doing this in the first place, and you feel like you feel alive. You feel like you are in control of your destiny.
I mean, it's still a job, and it still has its headaches, but at the same time, it's one of the things that happened. One of the benefits was it forced me to slow down. I had calculated at one point I had basically about 3 or 4 years where I was sleeping 4 hours a night just to make deadlines, 6 to 7 days a week.
And you can't be at your best working those hours.
No, I was towards the end of my run at DC, I was miserable. I was absolutely miserable. And everybody could see it. I was really getting burnt out. Sure. Because you're not supposed to work at that pace. My health was bad. I was, severely overweight. High blood pressure, pre-diabetic, just, everything. And what happened once I was able to take that step back and find a center for myself, not just, emotionally, but physically. I started working out, I started eating better, I dropped like almost 140 pounds.
Good for you.
Yeah, and I've kept off 100 of it.
Good for
since
you.
then. So, it's a, but it's something that I didn't realize about myself before then, or I didn't give myself the opportunity to realize that I could put that kind of effort into something other than my artwork, or put that kind of effort into my family and being with my family, and and communicating with my friends, and being being freer to be myself, and discovering who Jamal actually is, as opposed to just Jamal the art drone.
Yeah, totally get it. All right, so looking ahead, what should we be paying attention to now? What's in the works for you?
Okay, well, I a couple of years ago, I was part of a Kickstarter for a series called Black, which was published by Black Mass Studios, and that got optioned by Sony, and the first book came out and everybody loved it. We did a second Kickstarter for a sequel I just finished, which is called White, which should be out sometime later this year, I think. I finished that a couple of weeks ago, and they're working on their end. And the year before last, I did another series called The Wrong Earth with Tom Pyre for Ahoy Comics, that co-created with him, and I just started working on the sequel to The Wrong Earth. So that will probably, depending on timing, maybe the end of the year, beginning of next year, depending on how Ahoy puts together the schedule. So that's the stuff that I'm working on, and I'm working on second Molly Danger book, and other than that, I'm just trying to survive this.
Sounds like enough. Yeah, it definitely sounds like enough. Well, Jamal, I appreciate you checking in from quarantine. And before we wrap up the Facebook Live, I do want to thank some people who've been watching: Bill, Brian, Molly, Jean, Jeff, Giorgio, who says that has to be an amazing feeling. He was talking about some of your ideas and hearing your name on Supergirl on the CW. That's pretty badass.
Yeah.
John, Dan, Joel, Tyler, Susie, Chris, Katie, Brian, thank you all for watching. And I'm going to stop the Facebook Live. Thank you, Facebook folks.